but actually sometimes you need to be reminded of the basic stuff. One of the things I learned was I looked at some of the people on those courses and I thought, if they can do it, then I can do it. There were some courses that were really good value. People like John O'Hara, who have set up different businesses, angel investor, who could give some really good advice. One of them was a first client that we saw, and I rang him up and I said, oh, these guys haven't got much money, and how should I go about doing the license? And he went, can these guys afford you? He said, it doesn't sound to me like they can, you're wasting your time. But it would have, on your own, it would have taken quite a long time to get to that point. And people like Thomas Keskill, who, same thing, have been there and done that. And that was about how can you position your business for sale, because when you go into it, you really have to think about what your exit strategy is. And so one of the things I've been doing as we go along is having the discipline to make sure we're setting things up for sale in whatever shape or form that is, so that there's no skeletons in the closet that need to be cleaned out. And when an opportunity comes about, I can basically give them my little box and go, here's everything that you need to know about our business. And I read a lot. Most people will tell you about different books and things that they reference, and it's the same thing. You just start to pick up, it's not the answers, but it gives you some context, and you hear about what different people have been doing. And at the back, I just put some references of some books that I found useful as I read through. So we got to July 2006, we've been going for 3 months, and we went, oh, this is a 9-month project, it's not a 3-month project, and where are the dollars going to come from? Because our initial funding commitment that we had from the 3 founders, we had used up, and we had a project team that we were committed to paying, and we needed to keep paying them. We wanted to finish developing the system. So we, myself and Leo, agreed to fund it, and the impact of that was to dilute Rob, our founding shareholder. And the reality of that was, so I'm an accountant, right? So I did the numbers and I went, oh yes, this is how it all looks. And on paper that sounds fine. But the reality of it for me was, I've been working hard for a long time. So I had a mortgage-free house and I had a holiday house, and Leo raced cars, and we had some emergency money and all of those things. And the reality of it is, maybe if you've got nothing and it doesn't matter, but the holiday house suddenly became fully mortgaged. The race car got sold. The kind of, that emergency money and those shares that you have, well, they got sold. We started drawing on the mortgage, and this was at the time when those interest rates kept going up and up. Each time you opened the mail, there was another envelope saying it's now up to 10.5% or whatever. And we needed to take on some part-time consulting work. And the key thing was we didn't have a shareholders agreement in place, because we went into it and it was like, oh yep, 3 mates, let's put this together. But when we didn't think about what happened when we needed more money, and so we'd had a shareholders agreement, or we'd worked through those principles, it would have made it easier. Impact from a team perspective, just other people that we drew in to work with us through this, is we had an external trustee to protect the family interests, which was quite important, so that you can keep that separation between business and family. We got good legal advice from someone who had done IT commercialisation experience, so very pragmatic and very practical, not just from a legal contractual perspective, but with some different ideas about how to do it. We had to have some really difficult conversations with our other founding shareholder, and that's where that whole communication thing comes in. You've got to keep communicating, and you've got to have those conversations that are easier not to have. What came out of it, I think, was that there were different risk-reward profiles and a bit of different kind of family influence or background influence. What are you doing this for? Are you still trying to bash away with those guys? Kind of go out and get a real job? What about your family? And the other impact we had was because we started doing part-time consulting work, there was less focus on the startup business, there was less time available, and you can fall back into the trap of it's easier to do what you know and get immediate dollars. Because as a consultant, I can go out and earn good money. It's much easier when you're trying to do this when you've got no money to that whole, I guess, the So we got to the end of the year, we had finished developing the product, we had finished with the project team that we had engaged to get us to that point, and we had a holiday, which is actually important because you need some time out to kind of step back and reassess where things are at. Our initial prospect had told us that he wasn't proceeding. We weren't prepared to put in more shareholder funding, and because we now needed it to, not to go backwards was what we intended to do, and we needed to start marketing. And that was unknown territory for us. So all of the other things, development, project, running a business, all good at all of that, but don't ask me about marketing. I knew how to do a marketing plan and I knew the theory of it, but actually going out there and talking to people and getting in front of people so that you could start telling them what product it was that you had, that was quite scary. More from a how do you go about finding these people. So I did put together the marketing plan and started to talk to people through the networking about telling people what we were doing, and through that got introductions to insurance company execs and other people who might be interested, and that just came from having conversations with people. It wasn't a hit list of I'm going to go and talk to X, Y and Z. It was I had a conversation with, we showed the system to an ex-CEO of an insurance company that we knew to get his feedback. He said, he was on the board of another insurance company, and he said, you should go and talk to those guys, they're looking at their system. So we talked to those guys, and then I went to a conference, and because I had that introduction, I then got introduced to 5 other CEOs of other insurance companies. So that's kind of how, and all of that was scary. So, you're definitely out of your comfort zone, and you have to be able to pitch what it is that what your offering is. That whole elevator pitch thing, you have to have it down pat, so when you have your 2 seconds to say who you are and what you do, you can get it across. And those conversations really, you never know who knows who and who will introduce you to someone. And at that point we considered an advisory board, and we had people lined up to become, to be part of it. And kind of because of what happened next, I haven't progressed that, but I think we will pick it up again in due course. So from a team perspective, we were down to, Leo was finishing the system and we were doing proposals and demos. I was doing the marketing and business development and some consulting. So we had this big office, 100 square metres, but it had 3 offices in it. And we had 2 people, and it was a bit lonely because there was no one else to talk to. And externally, people start asking you how it's going. It's kind of like you've got a disease that people don't want to know about. And it's true. And so people, normally people will say, how's it going? But they know what you were doing. And so they'd be a bit kind of circumspect about what they'd say. And then they go, have you got a job yet? Have you sold it yet? But people actually just stopped. They just avoided the subject altogether. And some negativity from contacts and networks. So I think you have to be prepared for that, especially people who have been there and done that are quite supportive because they know how long it takes. But other people's expectations is that overnight success stuff. And so they think that it just happens. And if you've been going for a year and nothing's happened, you've failed. 2007, in June, we had a potential investor ring us up. He was interested in what we were doing. He was experienced in the industry and wanted to invest. So we went through this. We weren't looking for an investor at that point. We weren't looking to raise capital because hadn't worked out. If I had the capital, what would I do with it? So, but we did work through the process. We worked through the plan. We worked through the financials. And at the end of the day, after we worked all through that and flew across from Australia a couple of times and had a few all-day workshops, he offered to buy 25% stake at a value that was below our sweat equity value. And we went, I can go, and I looked at it and I thought, well, if I need the money, I can actually go to the bank and borrow that money. This isn't the right time to bring on the investor because I didn't know what he was investing. Something that was helpful at that